I got in shape and asked to open our relationship. Now I'm divorced and I can't get him back. A simple suggestion I made has cost me my marriage. My loving husband has decided that he is done and he can't continue our marriage. Hello, my name is Eloise and I am a 30-year-old freelancer. I'm married to Mike. We've been married for 4 years and have known each other since high school. Mike is 33 years old. He's a lawyer and is doing very well for himself. Mike and I had a wonderful relationship growing up. We practically lived. Our families were neighbors, and our childhoods were spent together at school. We were close at first, but then an incident occurred that brought us closer. I was a big girl, very big for my age. I was very chubby growing up and never saw it as a big deal. I didn't really care at first because my mother would always tell me that I was a special child and I should always hold my head up high. I believed her, and so I tuned out all the other noises. However, it became worse as I progressed in school. A new bully would appear each session, and I was exhausted. I disliked going to school. The thought of waking up early in the morning and dressing up for school was traumatizing for me. Unlike every other normal child, I would be excited to go. My parents kept moving from one city to another because of me, but they stopped when I got to high school because it wasn't really helping me. As I progressed through school, a new bully emerged with each new session. I was exhausted, and it was getting to me. I was the angriest I'd ever been at the end of each holiday. I disliked going to school. The thought of waking up early and dressing up for school was traumatic for me. Unlike every other normal child, I wasn't excited to go to school. I was sad. My parents kept moving from one city to another because of me, but they stopped when I got to high school because it wasn't really helping me academically. My grades weren't improving, and the bully got worse. I had to face my fears and embrace my new school, but it was really difficult to settle in. I even skipped classes and started to hide. But Mike noticed and made it his mission to bring me out of my shell. He would always bring me out of my shell and was always trying to include me in different conversations. Mike would insist on going to the cafeteria with me, taking me around the school to have a good view of the school building and a lot of important places around the school. Mike stood up against my bullies, and I was really happy. I began to get myself, I was confident again. I knew I was beautiful, but I was also aware of my size. Mike didn't care. We became close and did almost everything together. It was nice. Our parents noticed our closeness and teased us about being in love because of it. I didn't see Mike that way because he always made me feel like I was his little sister. He was always protective of me, and I was happy. I usually thought that he was way out of my league, and I made sure to always hide my feelings. Of course, Mike had girlfriends. A lot of our female classmates liked Mike, and they didn't mind doing anything to get him. I was jealous of them at times because they were the types of girls he preferred. Some of the girls were even jealous of the fact that he was close to me, but I knew that Mike didn't like me in that manner. I knew for sure that I wasn't his type, but I found myself hoping that one day he would ask me to be his girlfriend. I started developing feelings for him because of the way Mike and I were so close. I kept it to myself, though, because I kept thinking of how he would react. Would he turn me down? Or would he turn out like the other students that always made fun of me at that time? I didn't want to ruin the friendship Mike and I had growing. I didn't have many friends at the time, so I was really grateful to the one who stood up for me when I needed it. I didn't want to risk losing that friendship because I appreciated it too much. Another thing that made me hesitate in telling Mike about my feelings for him was my fear of being rejected. I didn't want to be embarrassed again, especially not about my appearance or my relationship status. I had feelings for him, which would have been the highlight for my bullies. I thought about all of this and didn't tell Mike. After high school, everyone went their own way for college. I decided to go to a college far from home because I didn't want to be in the same town as Mike, who was still seeing me as his sister. I thought to myself that if I had left, maybe I could get over him, but it was worse. It didn't get better every single day. I kept thinking about Mike. What made matters worse was that Mike kept in touch with me. He was always writing to me and checking up on me. We exchanged letters, texted, and made video calls. Then I knew that I not only had feelings for him, but I had fallen deeply in love with Mike. I was just too scared to open up. There were months that he would just show up at my school whenever I was down. He was there to boost my confidence. The new school was pretty similar to high school, just with a more intense experience. I got a lot of hurtful comments about my body shape. I thought I would get used to it, but at some point I just couldn't take it anymore. Mike was always there to encourage me and make me feel better. He recommended books for me to read so I could get over anything that bothers me. Mike really brought out the best in me during those times, despite me being out of shape and not really. I became more confident in myself, my vocabulary improved, and I spoke really well. However, I still lacked confidence when it came to speaking in front of an audience. Mike really brought out the best in me. He would often visit me at school despite the distance between us. Our bond grew stronger, and my feelings for him intensified with each passing day. However, I never saw us becoming more than friends because he never showed any interest in me romantically. I lost some weight, but not much. I was still plus-sized. I was on the dating scene, but it was tough going. Guys seemed to prefer slimmer ladies. And at one point, I even tried a dating site to see if I would be lucky and get matched with a guy. The few guys I got matched with rejected me because I was too fat and wasn't the type of lady they wanted to be paired with. I got pretty frustrated and even started to worry about myself. I told Mike about my experience, and he told me to not too hard on myself and stop worrying about being rejected by the men on the dating site. I followed his advice, and since dating was tough, I decided to just stay away. After we graduated from college, I returned home and started planning my life. I had a discussion with my mom, who is my best friend, about Mike. I told her how I felt about him and my fear of being rejected. My mom advised me to open up to him if I really liked Mike that much, but I couldn't. I just let things slide and hoped for the best. 3 months after we graduated, Mike asked me out on a date, as usual. We went on several dates, but just as friends. That was fine, but on this particular day, things were different. We had dinner at a restaurant. The atmosphere was great, and the view from inside was amazing. It was just the perfect spot for a proposal. Mike and I asked each other about our future plans and also chatted about other things. We ate and drank for a while before Mike proposed to me. He wasn't just proposing to his girlfriend, he was proposing to his fiancée because we had hung out a lot more than just as his girlfriend. He told me he had feelings for me and wanted to wait until we'd finished our studies before getting into a relationship. I told him I'd been holding back because I thought he'd reject me because of my size, like other guys had. Before I accepted his proposal, I asked Mike if he'd be ashamed to be seen with me. He said he wouldn't. He told me to stay with him like he always had, and we hugged. I accepted his proposal. Mike and I got married 6 months after that. It took that long because I wanted to lose some weight before the wedding. At some point, I broke down because I couldn't fit into my dream wedding gown. I had always imagined that one day I would lose some weight and wear a body-fitted gown for my wedding, but I couldn't because of my size. Mike told me that he didn't care about my size and that we should go on with the wedding anyway. I kept putting off the wedding because I looked beautiful regardless, but I finally decided to go ahead with it. Mike and I wrote our vows with a small group of friends and colleagues. It was a simple wedding, and I didn't want to be body shamed on that day, so we only invited a few people. The wedding went as planned, and I was happy for the first time in a long time. I was happy that I was getting married to someone who stood by me, and he was there for me through everything. I couldn't have wished for more. My husband and I started a new life far away from home. We didn't want any of our family or friends getting in the way. We were young and wanted to make new friends. We thought a change of environment would keep me away from those who bullied me. The new city we moved to wasn't easy, but it was better. 2 years after we got married, I was still at home, not doing much of anything. Getting a job was difficult because I didn't like the work environment and I was insecure. I felt like I was just stuck in one place. After watching a couple of weight loss transition videos, I decided to lose weight. The first 6 months were really tough, but Mike kept encouraging me and he told me everything would fall into place at the right time, and I was really motivated by his words. I was also keen on getting in shape. I wanted to lose weight and was ready to burn out fast. I wasn't happy with my shape or how I looked. I wasn't even comfortable in my own body. I just needed to work out and be fit. I also had a personal gym instructor who taught me EXT lessons. I thought it would be easy, but it wasn't. A few days into the training, I had pains all over my body. At one point, I wanted to give up, but I was determined to achieve what I wanted. Days turned into weeks, then to months, and after a few months, I saw improvements. I kept at it and worked even harder. After a few more months, I was in a better shape than I was before. I wasn't as big as I used to be. I could do things I couldn't do before. I could wear the type of clothes I wanted. I was beginning to feel Mike was really pleased with my new look and kept complimenting it. It wasn't an easy process, but it was worth it. Now this is where the real trouble begins. After my transformation, I started making new friends in the gym. Some of them even invited me to join them for a hangout for the first time ever. I was invited to hang out and I wasn't body shamed. I loved the new me and I was really proud of myself. I liked the change I was seeing, and it made me really happy to not be too conscious of my body anymore. I felt like I was finally getting rewarded after a long time. Along the line, a lot of men approached me asking more. Some guys even wanted to go out with me. I was really happy that I was being noticed after being invisible for years. When I uploaded any pictures on my wall, I got a lot of compliments and had guys flooding in with messages asking me out. I started ignoring Mike, and I totally forgot about him. Mike noticed my behavior and asked if everything was okay. I assured him that it was. Since I got into shape, we didn't hang out as couples like we used to. I focused on myself, and that got Mike angry. We even had arguments on several occasions. Mike complained about me all the time. By that point, I was always on the defensive because I didn't see anything wrong with hanging out with just a few friends. Mike didn't like it and told me to stop. He said that if I kept doing it, it would damage our friendship. I didn't listen to him and carried on as before. I stopped talking to Mike and distanced myself from him. One morning, after my husband was ready to go to work, and I was also ready to go to the gym as usual, I called Mike and told him I wanted to have a conversation with him without feeling any guilt or shame. I told him that we should open up our relationship. I told him I wanted to talk because I wasn't having fun with my new friends. I also said that we could still be a couple, but we could both have an affair outside. Mike was surprised and shocked to hear. I was surprised to see Mike throw the breakfast tray I'd served him in anger. I was even more shocked when he kept getting angrier and angrier. He looked like he wanted to give someone a heavy punch. Then he got up and punched the wall. It was so hard that I went inside to get the first aid kit and help dress the wound. I stretched to take a look at his hand, but Mike pushed me out of the way. I lost my balance and fell to the floor. My husband left home that morning, angry and with a bleeding face. I kept thinking about it. I was confused by Mike's reaction. I had suggested something simple, but he reacted strongly. If he didn't like the idea, he should have objected instead of getting angry. I didn't think too much about it and went to the gym that morning to do my normal workout routine. The gym became my favorite place. Sometimes after working out, I would stay a little longer and wait for Ryan, my new friend. We didn't have anything other than friendship. We were just friends and nothing else. Ryan and I always have breakfast together after a workout, and we talked over coffee. There were times Ryan made advances to him, but I kept turning him down because I was married. But we still maintained our friendship. So after our usual breakfast that day, I went back home and did some house chores and watched movies throughout the day. That day, Mike didn't return early like he used to. I tried reaching out to him, but he wasn't available. I was worried that night, but I was exhausted and already feeling sleepy after a while. I went to bed because I knew Mike would take care of himself the next morning. I was woken by a splash of cold water on my face. I immediately stood up and saw Mike standing with a bucket of ice water. He told me I was lucky he didn't pour the water on me. He also told me to get out of the house before he changed his mind. I was confused and couldn't understand what he was saying. Before I could say anything, Mike held my arm and dragged me out of the room and threw me outside. I got out and I found my luggage outside. I asked him if this was a joke. Mike said that if I went onward, I'd cease to be his wife and regret knowing me. He told me to leave his house and accept divorce papers in a few weeks. He said it's his way of freeing me to have fun like I always wanted. I started pleading with Mike, saying I didn't mean what I said and had only suggested it. Mike looked right into my eyes and told me how disappointed he was. He asked the gateman to throw me out of the house and ordered him not to let me into the compound. I kept begging and crying for Mike to have mercy on me. I asked him to take me back, but he didn't. I didn't know where to go. We lived far away from home and didn't know of any relative I could run to for help. I thought about meeting Ryan for help, but he told me he was married and couldn't accommodate me. Most of my new friends turned their backs on me. I kept going back to the house to see if Mike would forgive me, but he didn't. All my efforts to make him talk to me were in vain, and instead he served me divorce papers. 3 weeks later, I'm still in the same situation, and I don't know what to do. I've been trying to keep up with this situation for 8 months. So I'm going to give you guys an update. Mike and I never managed to resolve things. I'm still surprised that he left me. I tried everything I could, but it didn't work out. We've gone our separate ways for now. The constant back and forth was too much, and one day I got really upset and signed the divorce papers. I sent him the papers and had them sent back to him. I knew there was nothing I could do to change his mind. He was very angry that I'd suggested opening up our relationship after getting into shape. I shouldn't have suggested that. My husband didn't deserve to be treated that way. Mike stood by me. Mike stuck by me through thick and thin, even defending me when I couldn't defend myself. I messed up. I want to be with Mike and apologize for being stupid. I let my weight loss cloud my judgment and didn't think straight. I wish I could tell Mike how sorry I am. I'm really sorry about the weight loss. It's cost me a lot. When I started hanging out with friends and being stopped by men, I felt very alive. I never experienced that growing up. Like every normal teenage girl, I felt lonely, and nobody ever wanted to be my friend. Mike was there for me, but I let him down. I thought going to the house one more time might make him change his mind, but it didn't. Mike couldn't even look at me like he used to. All I saw in his eyes was a man filled with so much anger and hatred. The sight of me despised him so much that he couldn't even stay. I also brought my parents to the room to talk to Mike, but it was all in vain. He wasn't open to listening to anyone and was bent on getting a divorce. The way he kept on embarrassing me was unbearable at times. I do wonder if it's actually the Mike I used to know Mike completely. Mike has changed. He isn't the calm and gentle man I used to know. Divorce is a crazy experience. I don't have much to look forward to. It's like I'm back to square one. When Mike and I got married, I wasn't doing anything. I quit freelancing. I've been out of work for a while now, and even though I'm fit again, I'm still struggling to find a job. The roles I've found either pay too little or have too many hours. This has been my major challenge. I can't even go back to my parents because they wouldn't take me back. Life in the city is really hard for me right now. I don't have any money to Mike, and I were only feeding on his own salary, and I was just too comfortable. I had no idea that a day like this would come if anyone had told me that one day Mike and I would go out separate ways. I would have called that person crazy. There was even a time I went to the house to ask. Mike offered to lend me some money, but I turned him down. I was at my wit's end. I thought he'd be sympathetic and help me out, but he didn't. To be honest, I'm still kicking myself for doing it. It's been 3 months since our divorce, but I'm still hung up on my ex. My husband, I'm sure you're wondering what I'm up to. Well, Mike is really doing well for himself. He moved out from the house we rented, and he's in his own house right now. When we were still together, we had planned to change houses, but I messed it up. I dare not show my face at his new place. The last time I went to see Mike in the house, he threatened to file for a steunsmafos. I don't want to get a restraining order, which I don't think is going to happen. It's not going to be easy for me to move on from Mike after the divorce. I realize that Mike loved me more than I loved him, but I'm still wondering how he's able to move on so fast. I can't see Mike and I getting back together because he's made it clear to me on several occasions that we're done. This is the worst karma ever.